I am going to officially, again, gavel this meeting to order because we have a special announcement we have to get out of the way up front. Confronting another controversy, as the Steam gentlemen do. We got to take this thing head on. So I'm gaveling this meeting to order of the esteemed, bucolic Order of the Steam Gentlemen, subdivision of the Illuminati, Section 2.5, and Shapeshifting Lizards. This is the Birdman, Josh Fink, representing. Gotta go around and have the other members of the council speak up. Three of clubs, can you officially register into the meeting today?
Probably wrong. So sure. What to do? How to do? Nice to be with all of you. I would like to also add an addendum. That's redundant. Posit an addendum to last episode in which I would include, to my point, one more thing to make comedy work, especially if you're going to be crossing some lines, is you need permission to tell those jokes. Now, if you're within the culture, you are born with that permission. If you are outside of that culture, you do not have permission. Keep those rules in mind and tell jokes accordingly.
All right. And actually, point of order, I forgot to mention how much I loved Eddie Murphy playing the old Jewish guy in the barbershop in Coming to America last week, which was one of my main points I wanted to make. So, and he wasn't born in the culture, but God, I loved it.
Well, what I mean, well, yeah, that part, yeah, I'm sure I would bet Eddie Murphy got some sign off on that last part. Yeah. But what I mean is, when you think about it, part of the reason why that role landed the way it did, mostly universally to the point of almost no protest, was he didn't actually make fun of anyone. And right. Sure, he was using characteristics that one might call stereotypic if, in fact, that individual only thinks of people of the Jewish faith with just those characteristics. What he did was, frankly, I would argue, just represented someone who would be found within Brooklyn or Harlem or the Bronx during that time, because they were the last vestiges of the people who were, mostly there before white flight really kicked in, and where the most of the first quote unquote ghettos were, and why we call them ghetto. It came from individuals that Eddie Murphy was acting as in that movie. There's a lot of history in what he did.
Muhammad Ali, the man should be called Muhammad Ali. And speaking of Muhammad Ali, also got to have my man Greg DeSense checking in here. Starchild, what's going
on? It's a pleasure to be invited this week. And I've just been I want to claim first citizen of the People's Republic of Dorchester.
All right. Yeah, kid. Dot. All right. I'm down. What's any party membership dues? You have to be a party member in good standing to get food. What's up?
Oh, not at all. Just don't get caught fucking. I mean, really, that's it. Yeah.
All right. For all you Massachusetts locals, you understand what we're talking about. For those of you listening across the country, by the way, listening in Potomac, Maryland, I see you out there downloading all those episodes. Thank you so much, Potomac, Maryland. That is some awesome shit out there.
I didn't know there was a Potomac, Maryland. I now think that's amazing.
That's at least according to Spreaker and the information it gives us. So if you're in the wrong spot, but I've heard every once in a while I hear from people we've given the shout out to. So yeah, Potomac, Maryland, we love you. That's looking good. We're looking good out there. And I know you got some family down in Maryland by extension, Greg. So that's gonna work out. And Coeur d'Alene, man, I hear you out there. I hope I know who it is who's listening out there. But man, shout out to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, man. They go out there. Here it's lovely. Here it's beautiful. It's up in the upper end of the Rockies. Supposed to be pretty nice up there with a nice lake and some cool chill shit to do. So check out Coeur d'Alene. But I just wanted to take a moment because I've been hounded by the press all week, and I feel we need, as the Steam gentleman, to make an official statement. So I'm unscrolling. I'm rolling out the scroll, and I'm just going to say that the Steam gentlemen do not in any way endorse or drink Budweiser or Bud Light or anything of that particular beer variety. And I also need to make it abundantly clear, it's because it tastes like hamster piss that's been fermented, as far as I can tell. It was the reason I could never understand why anyone drank beer growing up. It has nothing to do with whatever gets put on the cans, a woman or a rainbow or what have you. But no, yeah, I'm gonna go out in the line and just say we ain't drinking that nasty shit. Like that ain't happening. It's cool. I'm not offended by whatever's on the side of the can. And I think if you've listened to the show, Mike, hope you're out there listening this week. We are good friends to the LGBTQ plus community. Remember, the plus gets you the free shipping and the video streaming, so make sure to sign up for that. But
the streaming subscription may look like my bank account. It may look like what you're signing up for, fans, but don't worry, it is not my bank account.
That's it. LGBTQ plus, whatever you got to be. But that's all good. That ain't the reason I ain't drinking Budweiser. I ain't drinking Budweiser because that shit sucks. Okay. I got one of my sister and her husband drank Bud Light for years, and I gave them endless amounts of shit, and they seem to have moved off it. And I'm going to take credit for that, even though it had literally nothing to do with me whatsoever. But I was like, really? You drink this shit? Come on.
Friends don't let friends drink shitty beer.
Yeah, so I'll open the floor to you guys just on that matter here if you have anything to say. But that's our official stance on Budweiser. We're not drinking it. No, it's not gonna happen.
Ironically, the last time we had a very heavy movie specific topic for our episode, I talked about drinking shitty beer, getting hammered left and right, moving into micro brews. And I'm bringing that up because I would like to remind ourselves and our listeners that we are in our 40s. To answer Josh's question, most of our adolescence and we were illegally drinking beer, which is, I would argue, when most of the time we were drinking this beer, it was the only freaking option and choice. All right. So let's not stick our nose too far up, knowing that damn well most of it came down to like, dude, that's what you got. That's what we're drinking. All right. You got the Bud Light keg. That's what we're doing. I mean, that's a little fair. And also I'd be lying if I said I never had a good time just getting hammered off of Bud Light. Do I want to do it often? No. Do I ever want to do it again? Absolutely not. And did I ever think at any given time was good beer? Fuck no. But let's sometimes spam is spam, and that's all you got to eat. Sometimes it's Bud Light.
RaShaun, I'm going to absolutely throw down the gauntlet and counter you here that I didn't drink Bud Light. I drank natural light. God damn it. Right. I drank Natty. Okay. And if we were feeling fancy, it was Natty Ice. All right. That's when we were getting the good shit. Remember all the ice beers? Remember when that marketing hook came out and we had to drink ice beers all of a sudden, which did anybody really know what that was? Greg, did you do the ice beer thing or not?
No, we were drinking it. I mean, if you're talking about the drink that we weren't supposed to be drinking, it was St. Ides, Old English, and Colt 45.
Oh wow, okay.
And if you really wanted to, for the ladies, then you had some Boone's Farm apple wine. It had cherry flavor. There was apple flavor. That was the shit. At my house,
you were
romancing. It was at my. I mean, personally, I never didn't drink Heineken, Corona, or Guinness. And I remember my very first crop of white friends thinking that I was like, super fucking fancy because I didn't go straight for the Bud or Coors. And I was like, because that stuff is swill. I stopped drinking swill in high school. That's when you drank the OE because OE was just what you had. Or you drank St. Ides because that's right, kids, $1.50 for a 40 back in the day. It was $1.50. It still took like four of us to squirrel together $1.50. But the point was, like, that's what you got. But now that I'm a grown up and I got money and a car and girls like me, I'm gonna drink
2 for $3.
I'm gonna drink good beer now.
two for three. But
we
yeah,
are in our 40s. Yeah,
that's the point. Is none of us are reaching for it if we had a choice, and none of us did reach for it when we didn't have a choice.
If you gave me the choice today, I'd still drink OE over Bud Light.
Oh yeah, I would too. I think. Well, I don't know. It depends. So to your question, Josh, were you talking like why beers had like the name ice in it, or are you talking about like literally ice luges?
I remember.
Frankly,
beers had the ice name in it. I remember it was the marketing gig, and it was
no. Oh well, yeah, it was partly marketing, but it was to indicate it had a higher alcohol
content,
ABR.
Yes. So, I remember because it's like you say, it's marketing, it's alcohol content. Everybody had to have an ice beer,
because it was literally their strong brand. That's it was nothing more than that. I mean, it's like calling things like how a lot of beers went to light, except for Miller because they made up technically LITE.
Right, light. That was it.
But everyone knew. Yeah, everyone knew, and they meant a lesser calorie version of whatever it was. It wasn't necessarily super specific.
In the case of Natty Light, no one drank natural because that was out there. No one drank your natural beer. And Natty Ice just meant it actually had alcohol in it. Right? It meant to it reached 2% alcohol percentage. So that was how that was about it. But all right. Well, that was just we record these things, in advance, and it's going to happen. And so probably by the time this reaches your ears, we will have all retired to the Winchester, sat down, had a nice drink, and let this whole thing blow over. But I just felt we had to take an official stance on where we were on Bud. That's just the way it is, I think, at least at this stage in our lives. Who knows? Maybe by the time we reach 60, we just won't give a shit anymore, and we'll be back to it. But that's a wonderful case, a wonderful example of things that it did not exceed our expectations. That was much lower than our expectations. But we are here today, segue, to talk about the things that exceeded our expectations. Particularly, it is our show. It's pop culture. It's social commentary. It's three guys sitting around shooting the shit. It's what we do. We wanted to talk about those franchises, those movies, those television shows, whatever it may be that exceeded our expectations. What is it that really just blew us the hell away, that kind of came in? We maybe were just, again, in our cynical space and just, ready to be underwhelmed and not impressed. Maybe like you are on this show today. Who knows? And maybe we can go way above and beyond and make it something special for you. That's what we wanted to talk about today. So, as in our way, we decided what the subject matter was going to be. We decided how we needed to make it. So, Greg, I can't remember. Greg, was this your idea or was this RaShaun's idea? Who had this originally?
I think it was RaShaun's.
RaShaun, beautiful. Look at that smile. I'm looking at that smile. All right, RaShaun.
All day with this.
All day. Goes back and forth, going to it. But Greg, I'm going to have you kick us off here. I'm going to have the Star Child take us on a little journey around the stars and see what's up. So tell us about that time that your expectations were so exceeded, where you just went into that stratosphere and just said, God, I love this. Let's hear it.
I mean, honestly, that's happened a lot because it's probably one of my favorite experiences. Sometimes you're not really thinking you're going to be into this, but damn it, you end up being into it. Most probably one of the most recent examples definitely is the Arrowverse. That's Green Arrow and the Flash. There have been other Flash TV. There was another Flash TV show, and that actor ended up making a cameo in that in the new series, but it was actually good. We were enjoying it. I mean, for the special effects were what the special effects were. The acting was what the acting was. Did it look like just, a soap opera with lightning effects sometimes? Yeah, sometimes it honestly did. But did it work? Did you buy that this universe was real and that these villains were a real threat? And did you care about the Flash? Yeah, you really did. You really did. And I think they stretched their budget as far as they could. You know, they couldn't go crazy with the special effects, but they did a very solid job of giving you a good comic book series. And I think upon some rewatches, it's going to be remembered as one of the best comic book series ever, you know, period. But apart from that, another thing that blew my mind was Battlestar Galactica. Battlestar Galactica had no right being as good as it was, because the original show wasn't that great. It wasn't, you know, anything. I mean, I guess it was for the time groundbreaking. Everybody was trying to get that sweet, sweet sci-fi money dripping off of Star Wars. So anything that you really, you know, wanted to put in space, people were willing to entertain in the early 80s. You know, like if you couldn't put David Hasselhoff in it, then you had to put it in space. Looking at you, Buck Rogers. But the new Battlestar Galactica was brilliant. I mean, did it get a little convoluted in some places? And it's like, all right, you're really getting away from just the evil empire. And I don't want to give away too much, but you know, you're just getting away from what the Cylons are supposed to be. And they did it in a very smart way that was very involved with a lot of intrigue, which is something you usually don't have a lot of in science fiction. And main character's gonna die. You weren't ready for that. Like, you weren't ready for that. Like, main character from, you know, the beginning of the series was going to be there at the very last episode. Like, that's what happened in old TV shows. This one, no, man, you didn't know who was going to get it. And you were on the edge of your seat, you know, and they never felt like they were, you know, always on the back foot. They never felt like they had control of the situation. And it was just absolutely incredible tension. So I was not expecting that, you know, but then again, my nostalgia goggles aren't very good. So it's not like I was going to watch the old show anyway. In animation, I mean, there's too many in animation. I really wanted to do it on the Animaniacs because these were 3 new Warner Brothers characters that shouldn't have gone anywhere. Like nothing should have happened between Animaniacs and Freakazoid. Like those should not have been. And obviously they're just insane characters and you're just watching it for the laughs, but they were fucking great. They were great. They were really good. But I'm going to say probably Batman Beyond. Batman Beyond. You're stepping into some big shoes, man. You're stepping into Batman shoes. You're saying you're as good as Batman. Who is this kid? Look at some Irish kid with jet black hair. Fuck is this? I have no idea what this is supposed to be. But it was a decent show. Obviously, it was just future versions of everything that was happening in Batman. It was made by a lot of the same people who made Batman the animated series. So it was, in a lot of ways, the same formula. But you didn't care. You really didn't care. You ended up liking this kid. You ended up liking what Bruce Wayne's new role was going to be. Finally, they just put Batman in a cool nano suit. You know, like just upgrade the man. Just make him Iron Man in a cape. Like, just do it. Like, just make him Iron Man in a cape, or just, you know, give him like a demon symbiote suit. Like, give him something. Like, it's time for Batman to get out of the underwear. But it worked. It absolutely worked. And the design of the character, the black suit with just the red logo on the chest, amazing. Don't know why he needs a belt, but it's Batman. He's got to have a belt. It was a great series. Highly recommend it. And again, I don't know if I've said this before, but I'll say it again. The only solid good thing out of Star Wars, Clone Wars. It's the only thing that is good in all of Star Wars. Full stop. Nothing to add to that. Like, it is the only thing that makes sense, that follows, that's consistent. The characters are consistent. The stories are consistent. It is the absolute only thing. If you're going to watch one thing, Star Wars, Clone Wars, full stop. And then movies. I mean, we grew up in the 90s, so obviously independent film. Independent film, there were tons of things that were made for practically no money that ended up being massively successful. Blair Witch. Not sure when Paranormal Activity came out, but that's a perfect example. El Mariachi.
Early
2007.
Early 2000s.
Yeah. 2007, I just saw it.
Yeah.
But, you know,
Mariachi 92.
90s. Yeah, that ended up making a ton of money. Pulp Fiction was made for relatively nothing, and that ended up making a ton of money. So all of that was probably nothing new to us. Um, out of all of those, I'm gonna say Pulp Fiction. Obviously, it's the most, love it or hate it. You can try to talk about Clerks. You could try to talk about Chasing Amy or some shit. No, Pulp Fiction is the movie of the 90s. It's just the quintessential film of the 90s. Like, it pretty much is the movie you're going to recommend to most people if you definitely want to catch up on the independent film movement. It was the godfather of the independent film movement. But I wanted to talk about a different film. I wanted to talk about a different movie that, again, had no reason being as good as it was. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Yeah, I know. But Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is an amazing film. It's an amazing film. And there are going to be some spoilers here. So, skip to Josh if you have to. But you don't expect a children's film to handle anxiety as well as this film does, to handle the idea of death as well as this film does, as well as staying true to the characters and the basics of Puss in Boots and Shrek, with the absurd takes on classic fairy tales. And the funny is genuinely funny. Like, the side characters aren't annoying like usually in animated films. Like, they're funny. And while we're talking about the animation's incredible. Like, it is next level. Like, I always remind people, animation means to bring life. And the mannerisms of all the characters, the foliage to the hair to the light in everyone's eyes and their expressions as they talk, like, they translate everything. And it is beautiful and brilliant. But it also did something else for me, because I couldn't help but notice online. The reason I saw this was because I noticed that it was getting a bunch of positive reviews from guys on YouTube and online that usually hate everything. And I couldn't help but notice that this movie checks off the box for everything they say they hate. I mean, first, you have the main character who's now, being diminished and is weak, because now he has a female character who is a total Mary Sue and just shows him up left and right. They say they hate that. And inclusivity, like, this is actually an Italian fairy tale, but it takes place in Spain because reasons. And because
Antonio Banderas, let's be honest. Come on.
Yeah, Antonio Banderas, right.
Yeah.
And the villain is basically Trump. He's this big, dumb, whiny white guy who's just absolutely unscrupulous and amoral. And he inherited everything, but is constantly making himself sound like the victim. He's got this mush mouth, but he thinks he's good looking. And he's just a twisted, sick fuck. And sidekick characters. And I think there may have been a few gay characters, but I'm not 100% sure. But you're getting what I'm saying here. Like, usually these are the things that they say is the downfall of popular culture. These are the things that are going to absolutely destroy modern movies. And yet, this movie is brilliant. So, like, it's like I always say, you know what? If it hits, it absolutely hits. And this movie just does. And side note, and, quick fun fact, the guy who is the voice of the big bad wolf, who is the representation of death in this film, played Pablo Escobar in Narcos. So,
oh shit. Oh shit.
Yeah, so that is how deep that whole thing went.
Damn. All right, little Pablo showed up. Firstly, by the way, you had to get the dig in on Star Wars as usual. Well done. Stand on brand the entire time.
It's what I do.
We actually have episodes where Mr. Starchild is on wax saying he's a fan. So everything you just said, there's a but after it. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Still there. But
if you're going to watch one thing, then that thing is absolutely got to be Clone Wars. That's going to be
by the guy who made Samurai Jack.
There's that one too. You can watch that on Disney Plus as
and
well.
Also, how you gonna say Puss in Boots is the first or handled death and one of the first animations to do it when Land Before Time sitting right there, just sitting right there, just telling you all the life stories around death. You know,
trust me, the way this one handles it, you have to be a middle-aged man dreading your next doctor's appointment to really appreciate it.
That's why I don't make them.
And I just had to put it. I just got to put out there, since we're talking Animaniacs, I have to say this because I've been waiting. I feel like this is my space. This is my safe space. And I've been waiting to say this for years. Animaniacs had one of the fucking funniest jokes ever put on children's television whatsoever. There was one episode where they would do cutaways in black and white. And they would, and they would go back and forth to like different stars because the idea is that they've been locked in the tower since the 1920s or 50s or 30, whatever it was, when they've been locked away. And they have aged entertainers talking about the Yakko, Wacko, and Dot, the Warner brothers and their sister. And it says it's a well-known fact that Yakko had a big problem with Milton Berle, right? Which is just the best fucking joke ever. And I'll let our listeners in on it because Milton Berle was known for having a giant penis. Okay. Like he was known for having the biggest dick in the room. So you've got to draw the inference that apparently they were literally whipping their dicks out with a cartoon character. And I just thought it was the funniest goddamn thing. And I couldn't believe it. And I felt like
I didn't know that at the time. So I guess I didn't appreciate it.
So I did, and I felt like the only kid who got it. So there you go. I mean, maybe
you
maybe
knew about Milton Berle's dick when you were that age?
Don't go too deep into it, man. We ain't got the time or the therapy money. I would say
it's a Jewish thing, man. We're not known. Okay, like literally, you're starting off life a half step back. So come on.
I think there needs to be a slight fact check to the Animaniacs. That actually was a property that was very anticipated because it was billed well before we even saw it as the next great product coming out of Warner Brothers / Looney Tunes, which another fun fact, people, is called Looney Tunes because the actual Looney Tunes, for it to have been an actual Looney Tunes cartoons back in the inception, if you notice, it always had music, and not only music, but the music was timed to the action of the animation, thus Looney Tunes.
All right. Check it out. 3 of Clubs dropping some knowledge bombs.
Disney did the same thing, so it was kind of like a theme back then.
Silly symphonies, I think, is what Disney called it. But yes, that was their own thing. But when it comes to the funny, Looney Tunes always brought it. I got my soft spot for Disney. I won't lie, for the the evil corporate entity that they are. But all right. Stepping up to the plate, it is now the Birdman coming on up for his little 10 minutes of fame.
Go third person. Do the whole thing third person. Come on.
Whole thing? No, I don't know if I can handle. I can't do a Jimmy from Seinfeld. I can't quite pull that off.
This is my main point of Budget Busters. Take a chance.
Go for it. But
Jimmy don't like that.
All right. Couple things that exceeded that expectation. Firstly, though, got to give a shout out to Supernatural. Got to go lead off with that. Just when it comes to, I have to say, it seemed like it was just going to be another typical Warner Brothers show. And it was for the longest time WB in that network. And yeah, all right. It had all the right elements. It had the nerdiness. It had all of the lore and all of the creatures that the brothers were hunting week after week. But they just after week after week. But firstly, it did start off with the fact that it was the soundtrack of all the music I love. It's all classic rock. It's all Led Zeppelin. Hell, they ended an episode with Rush, Fly By Night in the earliest seasons. I mean, I loved it. They had everything there for you. Yes, as Greg just mentioned, it went on way too fucking long. And I still watched it because it leaned into the fact that it was going on way too long. They actually made the tongue-in-cheek references. They have an episode called Jump the Shark where they find out they have a half-brother they didn't know before, and he then gets killed. But it was still a reference to the 70s TV shows where they had to introduce a new character and bring in a new family member to keep the show going on longer. Ralph, looking at you, Ralph Macchio on 8 is Enough. Looking at you, Leonardo DiCaprio on Growing Pains, right? The fact that they actually wrote that into the title of Jump the Shark, that's some genius right there. I gotta give that franchise its shout out. We'll also say The Boys has always exceeded my expectation. Granted, I didn't read the graphic novel, so I didn't have the expectations going into it that some people did. I just think it's an amazing social commentary, right? Particularly also what you're talking about, Greg, as far as like all the things that people are supposed to hate. And they are even teasing that. They're teasing the rainbow capitalism that I was teasing at the beginning of the episode, right? They get it. They know that shit. Right? Vought, which might as well be Amazon, which produces the fucking show, is teasing Amazon constantly in real time. It's showing like, hey, corporations really don't care about you. They really don't care about what you are. But if they can make a buck off it, they'll sure as shit pretend to. They got no problem doing that. They'll put a rainbow on a beer can. They'll put a woman who, began life as a biological male on a beer can. We don't give a shit. What do you want? What makes you happy? We'll put that on the side of that. And we'll make your superheroes match up to those same expectations. We don't give a shit as long as the money flows in. So that always exceeded my expectations. Again, I guess I had pretty low expectations going in and didn't know the original source material. So I'll own my bit of that, but I've just been amazed by it and just constantly week after week. But got to settle on into my movies. I do love my movies, and I got to go back to my childhood, to the days of VHS, to this movie that my friends told me I absolutely had to see. Now, I grew up playing D&D, and it looked like Stranger Things, but without all the fun adventures and without the pretty girl to fall in love with or any of that. None of that happened. There were no secret labs in my town that were, punching holes into the nether, into the upside down, and letting creatures out and real creatures to fight. Now, none of that was happening. We just sat around in a room and smelled really, really stinky and rolled 20-sided die. That's what that was like. And that's the facts of what was happening back then. But this movie that comes out that I remember seeing the preview for, and the run in the theater must have been so short I missed it because I never got a chance to see it on the big screen. But we go down to our local video store and rent Highlander with Christopher Lambert, a Frenchman playing a Scottishman, right? Okay, already you've got my attention. The movie opens up in a wrestling match with the fabulous Freebirds. And I'm trying to remember who else they're facing off against, but it starts off with that. And it then quickly...
It was supposed to be a hockey game.
It was supposed to be a hockey game.
It was supposed to be a hockey game, and NHL literally said too violent for us.
Too violent. No fucking way. Yes, because what else could you get? Firstly, you've already got a young boy's attention, especially in the 80s. You start off with wrestling, and he goes downstairs, and he ends up taking out a sword and getting in a fucking sword fight and chopping the guy's head off. Amazing. Like, oh my God, show me more. And sure enough, that's just the beginning of the movie, right? It's a pit. It's a battle against good and evil. Somehow, for some reason, we don't even know why, these people are immortal and they can't be killed except by cutting their heads off, a very specific manner of death, mind you. But they have to go very specific. They have to go and battle through time until there is only one left. There can be only one. All right. That you have to battle and you have to get the prize, which no one even really knows what it is until the end. And then it's kind of lame, to be honest with you. But what, God, could you not have just made a more 80s movie and a more 80s young male movie? Like, it was perfect. Everything, every element was there. You've got Clancy Brown sitting there just looking all mean. Kurgan. He's called the fucking Kurgan. He's the bad guy. He quotes Neil Young. I have something to say. It is better to burn out than to fade away. Right? I mean, just every element there to keep you interested. Now, what a fantastic franchise setup. The sequel, apparently, they locked someone in a room, did not allow them to view the original film nor read the script, gave them, I don't know, a high dose of acid, and then said here, and then described the movie to them and then asked them to write a sequel. So yeah, that happened. The sequel was, it's almost indescribable. And I remember, and anticipating it and waiting, and it was like going to the theater and really sitting down, and it honestly made the Phantom Menace feel like, wait, what the fuck just happened?
You saw it in the theater?
I saw Highlander 2 in the theater because, we were all psyched to see
Highlander 2. Wow.
They did manage to kind of knit it back together with the television series, which is interesting that they managed to in syndication, though they had to get a completely new actor playing the lead role, though they brought back Christopher Lambert every once in a while. But all right, always exceeded expectations, always a bit of a letdown, but for where it went. But here's the one that really, in recent times, really got my attention, and something that, God damn it, get out there, let's make more of these, okay? Yes, in the late 80s, early 90s, wherever it was, we had Sylvester Stallone take on the Judge Dredd franchise, which many of us grew up reading the comics and looking
mid-90s.
Mid-90s, yeah, okay. And, all right, the original had Rob Schneider in it, who apparently you want to take may or may not want to take your vaccine advice from. All right, that's your choice. It's America.
And Diane Lane.
Yeah, right, I mean, a lot of, and Max von Sydow. So, okay, a couple names, but yeah, that did not go. But that brings us to the 2000s reboot, revamp, starring Carl Urban, known as Dredd. And what a fucking masterpiece this film was. Like, I was not expecting to like this film. I literally was rolling my eyes, of course, because I've got the Stallone version in the back of my head, and no one's ever taken this on. What a great take on the entire universe, on the entire IP, right? That idea. In essence, it's a low budget film, right? They show you some of these big sprawling scapes of the mega city that Dredd, who is there, who patrols and is the law. He's the judge, jury. He's the executioner, the law, all those things, right? Yeah, of course. Yeah, that guy that got so tied up with Stallone, but they bring it down to a kind of indie film, a kind of low budget idea that it all takes place in this one high rise, almost stealing some ideas from, I think it's the Thai film, The Raid. This idea of this sort of this internal universe within the universe, right? That the judges,
New Jack say it's all good.
Yeah, New Jack. I mean, I get it, they do, and yeah, if you kind of steal things correctly and you do it appropriately, it's fascinating, and that's what I loved. Right, it all takes place in this one high rise. Yeah, you got Cersei, you got Lena Headey in there. You have Carl Urban, who plays it to a T, never takes his helmet off. Just doesn't even do his usual, and going back to The Boys, fucking diabolical, right? This guy.
I think our fans are picking up a theme with your love.
And my wife, by the way. I think my wife and I have a large crush on Carl Urban. So, you can say whatever that means for our relationship. But yeah. Happiness, without a doubt. Now we can all get down with some Carl Urban. But what a great adaptation. What a great way to sort of take this large, sprawling universe, but realizing it's certainly, of course, within the first film, what should be more than one, but has not been, taking it down and taking that scope down into this individual fight for survival in this high rise, and even the drug and all the things, and the lens it's holding up to societal ills. Wow, just what a great ride. Was not expecting that, and just gotta give the big big thumbs up and the big wow. That really exceeded my expectation. The old Dredd there, starring Carl Urban. Go check it out, rent it at your earliest convenience, Steam people.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
I agree. Yeah, that was a great movie.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I know it was in the first Dread movie, but in the second one, it was still part of the plot that they were making up part of the city. Like the judges were kind of sort of making up like parts of the city in order to justify their actions, so to speak.
There was part of that. There's, as I say,
well, the only reason why I'm bringing it up is because to me, I always felt like that was their moment of going complete meta in the sense of like, yeah, we're keeping our budget down because everything behind us and around us that you can see, we're making up. Like this is all green screen, right? See this person right here? Not here.
Yeah, not here, right?
All this. Green screen. That's how we're keeping this budget down. We're just gonna do it better than most people, but that's
absolutely.
So I just love that moment where they're like, "This part of the city isn't real. This part of the city is real." Even while I'm watching and enjoying, I'm like, "All of this isn't real."
I think that was in the Stallone version, but
just the Stallone one, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was
because the Dread one was just on the building.
Yes, just on the building, and that the kind of meta thing is the very obvious comparable to police brutality and overstepping of bounds, right? It's and the very fact that they are the judges and that no one gets to question their decisions after it's made. So in both cases only, but I believe the certain parts of the city being fake and certain things just not being real are in the first movie. I think his parents are not real. They make his parents.
I just wasn't sure if that plot point continued.
Yes.
I forgot.
That was it. So
it was the conversation we got into about whether or not all science fiction is a commentary and whether or not at the end of the day all science fiction is a plot point, not a plot point, but satirical, because you could it's about the end of the world, obviously either burned out or it faded away, and you're just left with everyone fucking eating each other alive for space in this mega city because it's all we have left, especially if you grew up in the 80s like the creator of Judge Dredd did, then you could totally see, you look at 1980s New York, you look at 1980s Chicago, Escape from New York, Escape from LA, like that's for a long time what a lot of people saw the world looking like eventually. So it was perfect for Judge Dredd. Like it would leave you nothing but a world where people are taking extremes, and there's always going to be a new drug. I mean, look at this place. Do you want to do this sober?
In reality, China actually has mega cities that would fit multiple of our major metropolises in it comfortably, safely. Funny enough, someone did the stats on the Dredd movie as far as the crimes, both Dredd and Judge Dredd. They did the stats of the crimes reported and the sort of explain the story, the exploitation of the story. And statistically, it would be the least crime ridden area any of us would ever experience, because based off of the numbers they tell us and the people living in the mega cities, crime is almost non-existent.
Right. That's how they feel about it anyway. Yeah, that's how they
just going off the numbers. You don't have to feel about anything. This is quantitative data right here. They literally said the number, but then they mess up by saying how many people live in the city, in these mega cities, and if you just go off of those numbers, it's like, okay, so basically you kind of eradicated crime.
Yeah.
Just off of the numbers.
I mean, you have a, hit squad, the police.
Yeah.
I can actually give
I'm
you
not digging further into it. I'm just pointing out
on the
numbers
spot.
Did not actually, when you do the math, the numbers aren't as scary as they're trying to make it. They should have shot a little higher. They went Dr. Evil with their demands, basically. They went for the 1 million.
$1 million. 2% crime rate. All right. Okay.
People word? People from Iowa are like, word? I'll move there.
That's it. Okay. That's all good.
All right. Here.
With that, RaShaun, with that wonderful observation and digging on into the IP, let's give you your 10 minutes of fame. Let's find out what's going on with the franchises and anything that exceeded your expectations.
That's one thing that has always exceeded my expectations. Anyone drops an air horn, I'm here for it. No matter what, that'll exceed my see, good times. It's good times. I'm already in the party. I would like to focus on multiple things. The reason why we even came to this topic, Josh, I believe, sent us a clip from The Crow, in which all three of us do love, obviously levels of, actually real fast, because it's on the tip of my mind and I can't let it go. I'm both agreeing and disagreeing with Star Child on Battlestar Galactica, having been a lifelong fan of the property. I would say the first one suffered from a multitude of things. One being what we've already, all three of us have acknowledged, chasing that all sweet, as Star Child said, that all sweet sci-fi dollars dripping off of the Star Wars. Ironically, it's going to feed into some of the points that I'm about to make, and I did not intend for that, but like we do, we roll with it. The other part is, I would say the expectations, as far as the second one, the second generation, the redo, so to speak. I'm with you. The plot was both up against nostalgia, high walls, but then if people actually went back and watched the early 80s series, those high walls would get really blasted real fast and come down real fast, and realize, to Greg's point, that the second iteration definitely pushed the plot in a lot of different ways, and some organic, some I felt pretty forced. There were a decent amount of characters that, to Greg's point, you definitely didn't want to get too comfortable with. However, it did get to the point, like a lot of these series get to, where you can predict who's going to win, and it's based off of you, or you're going to predict who's going to survive a situation, and it's going to be based off of you. They do throw a curveball at you towards the end of the series. However, I feel like they effed up by retaking that curveball back. They kind of pull a Jon Snow, and I'll leave it at that. Which, if you know anything about me and how I feel about Game of Thrones, I am firmly in the camp of Jon Snow should have stayed dead. Anyway, moving on to subject at hand. We're like I said, Josh shared a clip of The Crow. Made me think about how awesome the movie is. I know all three of us feel that way. It also made me think about The Matrix. And what it also made me think about was, these movies were awesome for multiple reasons. They were awesome because they had great vision. They were awesome because they took a shot at a plot. You don't necessarily have to say it's a great plot or whatever, but they understood the mechanics of a movie and how a plot needs to move through it. They also had budgets that allowed for them to do certain things, but also constrained them, made them edit really hard, made them really think about that first choice that they thought was so clever for whatever idea or whatever scene, whatever moment, whatever part of the movie that they really thought was going to be the difference. A good amount of these movies, like The Crow, like The Matrix, and a lot of the movies I'm about to go through, they have to make hard decisions. And more often than not, it's not going to be anywhere close to some of the dreams that they had when they were thinking about making a movie. Case in point, when we bring up Star Wars, we all lose sight of the fact that most of Star Wars is with puppetry. Most of Star Wars is with, what's the term, Josh, when you're using actual props and not things like CG?
Practical effects.
Practical effects. There are plenty of movies and documentaries that you can find about the creation of Star Wars, where half the time you're watching guys behind a scene that you thought was the entire galaxy, but really it's just some blackboard and a bunch of guys standing behind it with literally puppets moving things along. They just did it well. They had to edit themselves, and they did it well. And that was one of the things that made the difference, to the point where I can give you actually what I would argue a decent formula to making the budget buster, and the sort of timeline how we got to the understanding of a budget buster. Because prior to, let's say, 1975, or Jaws, if you will, it wasn't so much that there weren't budget busters that Hollywood didn't produce. Matter of fact, to this day, the biggest budget buster movie that has ever been created out of Hollywood, or at least the industry of Hollywood, at all states that produce movies, is still Gone with the Wind, for the amount of money that it took to make it versus the amount of money that it has accrued. it's still Gone with the Wind. People can be upset with that, but that's where the numbers are. It's literally what I was just talking about with the whole statistics and crime and the Judge Dredd series, in the sense of they came up with this fascist system of judgment off of a crime rate that's lower than Montana. So sometimes you just really have to break
Wyoming.
through.
Come on, let's not forget Wyoming in there. Come on.
Yeah, or Wyoming. Yeah. So a lot of times these numbers get kind of misconstrued in how we think about it. I bring up Jaws because Jaws, to me, and if you look at just some of the stats, you can look up primarily, I guess, Wikipedia, and you go by both what movie produced the most by year and also by the budget. Jaws in 1975 not only exceeded their budget of only $9 million, but blew it out of the water. Before that, movies had to be good to be a budget buster. Simple as that. It had to be beyond good if you want to make that argument. It had to be not just well made or well put together or all these different things that make a good movie, but it also had to reach the people and be really, really good. Monumental, movie of the year type stuff. After Jaws, not actually the case. Matter of fact, you can make the argument that it swiftly started to move from to the point of what was my notes? After Jaws, now you're up against not only your budget, but your effects, your ability to produce those effects and have it attached to the plot that you're trying to produce in the movie that you're doing. So it was a slow arc. That's why you see movies like Star Wars in 1977, which had a budget of 11 million. But also produced $750 million when it came to their profit line. Rocky only had a budget of $1 million, but produced a product line, a profit of $250 million. So right there, you can make the argument, okay, not necessarily effects, although Rocky did push a lot of what we understood fight cinematography to be, even without such budget. So it was good for moving that line ahead. Go ahead, Josh.
I just want to remind our listening audience that he loses in the first Rocky. Continue.
So if you follow that line and you also go with the idea of, those movies that start to be up against that higher hurdle point or that higher barrier of entry of being a quote unquote budget buster, because now you're up against effects. After Jaws in 1975, you're also up against effects. Why am I bringing it up? Well, it's actually part of the reason why I love shitty sci-fi movies, because a decent amount of shitty sci-fi movies come up against this exact situation, this exact question, this exact sort of moment of clarity, and they have to start asking themselves a couple of simple things. We already talked about the effects and how a lot of times that makes them edit not only the effects of the scene that they're thinking about, but if they're good and they're paying attention, the rest of the plot and how they go about it. A couple other things that isn't just germane to sci-fi movies, but I think are definitely necessary to make this type of shitty or not shitty, but budget buster that can be perceived as shitty. Sometimes they fall under the category of cult classic. Sometimes they fall under the category of fan favorite. Sometimes they reach all three. And also why I think shitty sci-fi movies get a bum rap, because they try for all these things regardless of their success. So I'm going to talk about the movies that did all these things but got success, but I just want to point out the formula first. One, they not only need an idea, they need a plot. That sounds redundant, but believe me, if you actually go back to a lot of movies you love, that's not always the case if you're going to be critical about it. And better yet, not only do they need an idea and a plot, but they need a vision. They need to see past their mistakes, and they need to be easier on themselves in order to push forward. There's no way in the world, even George Lucas would be the first one to tell you he had no understanding of what he wanted to do after. He was so focused on just getting Star Wars out, and that passion comes through. Matter of fact, the last point I will just jump to, you got to have fun, because it will come through in the production. Whether it's a small sort of entity and you're not trying to reach any sort of heights, or you're really trying to push it, but you're constrained against money, you still have to have fun, because that comes through. It's no different than like things like cooking. You can't be prideful. You're probably gonna have to do a lot of things that you did not want to do to get that movie going. You're gonna have to talk to people you didn't want to talk to. You're probably gonna have to frankly, make some changes that you probably don't want to make changes. And depending on the budget and what you're going after, that will probably dictate the changes you make. Now, how you make them and where you make them will definitely make the difference in, the success. You also can't worry about the post credits. So this actually touches to an interesting point that we've all kind of intimated and touched on, but not directly, in the sense that if you make one of these great movies, these classics that break their budgets, you can't be sitting there thinking about what's going to come for the sequel. Not to say that they're not going to have sequels. Matter of fact, I'm going to name a couple of movies that hit all three marks and did pretty good with sequels, to the point where the sequels are actually some of the most highest grossing movies. And then finally, you have to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to be fearless and go after your vision, no matter how you have the ability to. That's, again, why I love shitty sci-fi movies. More often than not, to Greg's point about the Arrowverse, you're going to be looking at things where it's just like bad production when it comes down to it, one way or the other, whether it's bad because of their ability or bad because of their access. It's just going to be bad production. So really, if you don't have the other elements that I talked about, you're going to be missing out. Certain movies do hit just a fan, or some movies blow it out of the water. We've already talked about it, so I'll just gloss over it. El Mariachi in 92 had a budget of $7,000, ended up grossing $2 million. Clerks, which is not only a budget buster, but is normally ranked in any sort of go-to cult classic ranking, whether it's somewhere in the 20s or somewhere even lower, like around top 10. Their budget, which this movie came out in 94, and also had sequels similar to El Mariachi, had a budget of $230K, ended up grossing $38 million. Napoleon Dynamite, not necessarily, I would say, all the way through when it comes to these groups, but still a budget buster. Came out in 2004 on a budget of $400K, ended up grossing $46 million. And then you get to the movies that I feel absolutely are the 3 stars, the triple stars, the triple Lindy's, the movies that just cross the bar, because I think we all have to agree movies are either popular with critics or popular with fans, or kind of grow in time and become cult classics. These movies I'm talking about, just some examples, are ones that I would say hit all 3: Jaws, Rocky, the Star Wars series, because here's the funny part: Star Wars is on that top grossing list for those original 3. All 3 of them are on there. And frankly, they beat each year that they came out. They were the top, and they had pretty low budgets, comparatively speaking. All the original Indiana Jones, same thing. They're on there as well. They're fan favorites, they're budget busters, and they're considered cult classics. So I would start there and then kind of work your way out when you're looking at movies that broke their budget and how they did it.
RaShaun, that was a masterpiece. That was an absolute TED Talk. I love that. That was fantastic.
No, don't worry, because I just stumbled over my ick, and instead of sticking the landing, that's where I'm just gonna twist my knee real fast. I also left out in the formula, you have to catch people by surprise. The spotlight can't be on you. If you have any hope of doing a budget buster, whether just for the money or for the fans or the cult classic following, blah, 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 it cannot have a spotlight on you when you're starting or when you're developing. You have to be coming out of the shadows, regardless of what the topic is or the genre. Catch people off guard, give them something they haven't really been paying attention to, and hope for the best.
Man, RaShaun, I'm still calling it a clinic. That was fantastic. That exceeded expectations. That was amazing. That was awesome. You're keeping with
full
the
circle.
Full circle. Bring it back around. Make the reference. Yeah. My kids have been coming home making the bullhorn noise, like the air horn noises now.
See, it's a good time.
They have a routine. They come in, they go
like confetti goes off of your mind. It's
totally loving every
part
second.
of the point. Yeah.
Oh man, that was great, man. You put in a few fun facts in there that I didn't know, and reminded me of some things. still love being reminded of Clerks. You know, something that he, you know, sells his that Kevin Smith sold his comic book collection to make to try, you know, and now owns a comic book store. So still based off of all that money that he made. So God bless him, because that was, you know, deep down in my heart, that's still the film that represents me, if I really had to say it.
For fear of Kevin Smith ever making it onto our podcast, because I feel like of all the celebrities we talk about, that he's in the high probability category, even if we're talking about a probability of 3 versus like, you know, less than 1%. I'm
less than zero chance. Zero chance.
I'm gonna leave out any critical feedback. I would point out Kevin Smith has a lot to thank his career to. Not necessarily his skills as a director or a writer, but what he did with Clerks on a budget line.
Oh,
that is what made
Yeah.
Hollywood say, let's keep giving this kid some chances. Because even if he does a tenth of that each movie he does, Hollywood execs are always going to be happy with him.
Oh, boy, that's what they had in mind.
Yeah. Yes.
Make another cheap movie that'll make a ton of money.
Like, do that again. Do the roar. To quote Shrek, do the roar.
And you know, I think the subject we can continue to chew on, because frankly, I also want to point out comparative based off of inflation. You know, what is expensive now versus what was expensive then, what was the understanding of return on investment then versus now, because it's no thing for I mean, Avengers is not here, but their budget was $250 million. So yeah, they should have brought over $1 billion.
Right. And that's, yeah. And then you get, and that's
Well,
why the fucking wind is still there.
That's why Gone with the Wind is kind of an effed up thing to bring up, because comparatively speaking, their budget was pretty high for that time, but up against any movie, literally almost any movie, including things like Rocky, I think the lowest movie on there would be El Mariachi with
my Mimo would give me $1 or give me 10 cents, and I would go see a movie and get to moon pie and a popsicle.
Dude, did you have a seance with my dad? That's shit he would say.
That was just, that's how
the full economy of what you got at cinema. I got almost every story. Like, I got it. You want to take care of this $12 popcorn for me? Please?
Right, exactly. Yeah, it was entirely what happened. But go ahead, Greg. Sorry, I stepped on you there.
Oh, well, shit. Now I forgot what I was gonna say. You know, keeping things in perspective. You know, there's a lot of shit movies that also make a ton of money, and there's a lot of movies where, you know, you almost feel the fact that the reason that the movie sucks is because they had too much money. They threw a lot of money at it, and they thought, oh, you know, just keep going overboard. Especially Peter Jackson in the Hobbit films, like, just keep going overboard. Keep going overboard. People like it when you go overboard. Don't worry about it. And the trip is, like, a lot of those movies end up falling on their faces. So I think just this conversation and that fact, you know, just let you know that, you know, that it's something that's alive and well. You know, like, there's still room for these little indie films that come out of nowhere and end up, you know, making a ton of money and are really popular. But, you know, let's be honest, Hollywood just cares if they make their money back. They don't care. Here you go, Michael Bay. Here, go do it. I don't care what you think, because, you know, Michael Bay. Yeah, Michael Bay. Here, go and do the Michael Bay thing. So it's a roar. Yeah, so, you know, I think that's an important part for the conversation too. You know, like, thank goodness, you know, these surprises still come up, because otherwise we wouldn't be invested anymore.
Well, I would like to add 3 things before we head out. One being, if I wanted to start a fight, I actually, when we thought about this, after I thought about The Crow and The Matrix, I sort of wanted to bring up Pacific Rim, but, you know, I wanted to keep things civil. So I'll just move past it. Greg's like, I haven't fought in a while. Let's go.
It's fine by me.
I will also die on the hill of saying that 1984 David Lynch's Dune. I said Dune earlier. Dune. Dune. That movie would have been better. Going off of Greg's point, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I'll die on this hill. That movie would have been better if it literally did a play and just shot the play as the movie. Like, no,
you're saying Rushmore. You're doing Rushmore, the movie Rushmore, where he does all the film of the play versions of the films like Serpico and things like that. He should have done one of Dune. That would have been awesome.
Like, I would have been fine even seeing people in all black moving stages in between scenes. It would have been so much better than what he did. And to Greg's last point, and Josh, you made this point too, I ran out of time, so I'm going to bring up movies that broke budget but cult classics that did not actually make money in the beginning or were necessarily fan favorites, just kind of grew into cult classics and end up breaking budget that way. And that would be like your Friday the 13th, the first one, Halloween.
There's a ton of those.
Split, it was actually on there. Mad Max is on there. There's a ton of those movies where wasn't necessarily Blade Runner. Wasn't well received, but also had a low enough budget that over time, being a cult classic, blew their budget over. Well,
because I feel like that's one of those that is to movies what the Grateful Dead is to music. Like, it was just kind of a thing that happened then, but you doubt that it would happen again, right? Like, if a movie, I don't know, like if a movie bombs now, I feel like it's just like gone in the ether. But like back then, like a movie like Time Bandits, okay, didn't right?
We're not gonna say anything bad.
Like you don't like movies if you haven't seen that movie. You know?
I love RaShaun's like, you gonna fuck with Time Bandits, aren't you?
I mean, I know I was calling my shit when I brought up Pacific Rim. I didn't know it was gonna get personal.
Who fucks with Time Bandits? Like, who does that,
Bandits.
Man? Like, exactly. I love it.
Time Bandits.
The movie actually makes me cry sometimes.
Absolutely. Come on, man. Another Sean Connery film. Which we was in Highlander, but. All right, but what would exceed our expectations if you would head on over to Apple Podcasts,
iTunes, Diesel doing a good movie.
There's that too, and any place that you can rate and review us and help us get some of that sweet Casper mattress merch money, and help put our kids through college. We would really appreciate that. Anything that you can do to help get us some solid sponsorship, help us chart, help us get on up the ratings. We see you out there, Steam people. You're a loyal bunch. We love you. We know you. Go on out there, tell a friend to tell a friend, spread the word. Follow us on the socials. We are at Do You Even Steam Bro on Instagram. We are the Steam G's on the Twitter, where we're releasing episodes now, and the Twitter, because I had to do that with the Dune. And we are on the Facebook, the Steam Gentleman Podcast. So make sure to drop on by, say hi, join the community, help the community grow. It's out there. Just, keep pushing that Steam through the pipes. Greg, what's going on with you for the rest of this week? We recorded on an off day here. So what's going on with you the rest of the week?
I'm just going to promise not to tell anyone else anything where they end up ruminating on death all day.
Fair.
I promise.
That's kind of why we're
a high bar or a low bar for you.
That is also the basis of our friendship.
I'm not going to answer that.
That's the basis of our friendship, Greg. You do realize that.
Ruminating on death.
It's like we just talked to Indiana Jones. Hey, how was your last week?
I
graded some papers.
3 o'clock, Sean. What you got going on there?
Like normal, just try and make it to the next payday and then the next one, and hopefully nothing breaks on me or in my house and in the interim or on my car, which with the maintenance light popping up, that could be in question. I do want to leave our fans, our listeners, our loved ones with this. When Josh was going on talking about the movie and LARPing, and I thought he was talking about a movie about LARPing, I actually thought he was talking about this warm-hearted movie that I think if you have the time and you want to warm your heart, you should definitely check out. And it kind of fits what we're talking about, although it wasn't, even still will not break any budget whatsoever, although I'd be surprised if it had a big budget. The movie The Sasquatch Gang with Justin Long, although he's kind of in it for like 10 minutes combined, but it is a movie. It's warm-hearted, and also it's about LARPing. So,
all right.
You didn't bring up who else is in that movie.
No, I did not.
Oh, okay.
No, I did not.
We're gonna leave that a surprise.
Well, leave that a surprise. All right.
Justin Long is in it.
All right.
That's it.
All right.
Uncle Rico's in it. Is that what you mean?
Rico. All right, there we go. We'll try to.
The man who solved racism in the 80s, Carl Weathers.
Oh,
that's him.
There he is. Come on.
Carl Weathers is in it.
Come
Napoleon
on,
Dynamite.
Grief Karga himself. All right, loving it. Well, I'm gonna try and just keep my kids alive, as like kind of like RaShaun says. I got my usual problems. Got all the usual craziness going on right now. Of course, throwing in getting ready to move and trying to rent the place I'm living in. It's good times. It's all kinds of fun shit, but it's craziness. I don't know where I am on any given day. And I'm still here, and I'm still grateful that I get together to sit down and have some time with my friends here, which just makes my life so much better. Go ahead, RaShaun.
I want to add, because I know she'll listen, I didn't mean to leave out role models while I was talking about a movie about LARPing.
That's what I thought you were going with, by the way.
Sorry, Sarah Smith, because she's going to hear that and be like, what the fuck?
Sarah, I had your back.
Yeah,
Sarah, I totally thought he was going Augie.
Birdman was with you. I was trying.
I totally thought he was going Augie with that reference, and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. But that was Three of Clubs. That's vintage Three of Clubs right there. All right,
hit on 19. Let's go.
All right, let's go. Let's hit on that 19. And in the meantime, it is your spokesperson here for saying don't drink Bud Light, keep your heat up, and keep your head of steam on. So Birdman. Yeah, that's it. Wow, good point. Signing off. Keep your heat up. Keep your head of steam on. It is the Birdman Josh saying see you next week. Take care.